So we've spoken about Black Pound Day, and a lot of that is focused around raising awareness of black-owned businesses. Now, of course, aside that, there are a lot of other businesses or individuals that profit off black culture. So I'm interested to hear both of your views on this, actually, in terms of, do those businesses have a responsibility to support or invest in black communities, to give back in some way, shape or form?
Yes. Next question. No, please, take this on it.
No, it's yes.
It can't be anything other than yes. If you are making money off of black culture in any capacity, then obviously you have a responsibility. Because to my mind, if you're making money off of it, then you need to understand black culture in its entirety, and that part of that is not just the bit that gets glorified, it's also the struggle that happens in the back end. And if you're profiting off of the bit that gets glorified, then you must also accept the bit that is the struggle. And I think I remember sort of consciously looking for statements from individuals or businesses that I knew, and I think about, in America, take for instance somebody like Justin Timberlake, whose R&B career has effectively been built off of a swagger that has 100%, even I'm sure by his own admission, has come from black culture. And I think in those instances, you 100% have a responsibility to step up. And I think people will think about it differently in terms of what their responsibility is. Some people will just say something. I think those who are a bit more wise or hip will recognize that the structures that exist do not lend themselves to black people necessarily benefiting, and so they will try and do something in the back end, that will address those gaps, something that is more meaningful than just talking about it. It's the spending the money in businesses, it's the raising awareness, it's the educating yourself and then using your platform to educate the rest of the world. But I 1000% believe that if you are profiting off of black culture, then you have a responsibility. And there are examples that I can think of recently where people have tried to articulate this, perhaps not in the best way. I think of Wiley recently, who's tried to articulate, the power structures that exist. But he's not the only person that spoke about it. Perhaps he was just a little bit more cavalier in the way he spoke about it. But Annette, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
The Wiley thing, obviously we don't want to get fully into it, but the essence of what he's trying to say is, whether it's him as an individual or the people around him, the black individuals that work with him are not benefiting as much as the people who have the power. There's a power structure behind artists like Wiley as a producer or whatever. It's not just him. He's not getting all of that money, and we need to separate the art, which is the Wileys or whoever the artist is, from who's actually making money here.
Sure.
And I know it's not just black artists that have this issue, but we are having issues creating generational wealth as it is. And so when there are people behind closed doors, sitting down, not doing much, but, living a luxurious life, and then as soon as you don't want the artist, you drop the artist. But you've made your millions. And that money doesn't stay within our community. But then I would also argue, and this is not going to go down well, sometimes we have to be smart about how we spend our money when we are in the height of making it.
100% correct.
Right? So why are you buying Lamborghinis and blah, 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 and actually not using your money wisely to reinvest back in your children? And I'm not saying this, I know Wiley probably does it and other artists do it, but let's think about how we spend our money. It's because the chains, the rings, the cars is what we see in the media, right?
I have another question that I want to ask. And this is for both of you, and we haven't used the word in here yet, but I want to use it today. And it's the A word. It's appropriation. And we talk about appropriation, and we sort of define appropriation, somebody that's benefiting from a culture that perhaps isn't theirs, in a way that perhaps isn't necessarily genuine. And I don't want to start flinging out labels and taking shots at people. So perhaps you can do that for me. But there are people that are benefiting that aren't maybe necessarily giving back, or that are using the culture to their own benefit in a way that maybe doesn't feel authentic. And I would love, particularly, in the cooking area or culinary restaurant, you've got a lot of white-owned Caribbean restaurants, a lot of white-owned sort of black food businesses. So talk to me a little bit about appropriation.
See, this word appropriation, I'm going to be hated with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. So on the cuisine side, there's a business, I'm not going to name the business, but there's a business run by a group, I think 2 white guys, and they do jerk chicken. They are really big in London. Now, they present their food really well. It is that sort of street food, you know, really centric vibe that is currently in London. It looks great. The jerk chicken is not that bad. It's okay, but it's not authentic. Now, should they give back, knowing that they've taken the cuisine? I think there is a responsibility for them to be able to do it. But I think when we talk about appropriation sometimes, we always just assume that it is Caucasian, white people, or anyone else that is appropriating black culture.
Yeah.
Black people can also appropriate other black culture.
Sure.
And so, this is where I'm going to be hated. Beyonce. So Beyonce's come out with this new thing where she's really benefiting off of African culture and, you know, bringing the vibe with, you know, Afrobeat artists and using their music and the beats to elevate her current album. That is also appropriation because you don't understand the culture, but because you know that Afrobeats and, you know, the whole West African vibe is up and coming at the moment. You as an influencer, because she's one of the biggest influencers in our generation today. She has such a big following. And so in order to keep herself relevant, in my opinion, she's used that because Afrobeats is relevant. You see it all over now to heighten herself. So we shouldn't just think that it's only white people, Caucasian people, or anyone that's not black that can appropriate culture. It happens all over. It happens all over. But I feel that they need to give back. So Beyonce is an example of someone who's never toured Africa, ever.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not going back and giving the people what they want terms of, let's see Beyonce. She's never toured Africa.
Yeah.
And she's been going for decades now.
Yeah.
And so there's little pieces like that we forget because we're so focused on the white people appropriating white people.
Yeah.
We don't see other things that happen around us. But yes, she should be giving back. She should be touring. She should be going. She probably is helping, countries in Africa and stuff. But the same way, yes, these 2 white guys should be giving back. And how do they give back? That is a question for every individual business because it's corporate social responsibility. They have a social responsibility to give back. I cannot tell you how you do that, but you need to sit down and think about how you can do that. We all have the responsibility, but especially if you're a massive influencer or you're making significant money off of black culture.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I agree. So I think with appropriation generally, like, I do think there is a requirement to give back. And I think the thing that I would add to that is that I shouldn't need to, I should know what you're doing. Like, make that available, make people, because I'm sure to your Beyonce example, there's probably stuff she's doing in the background.
Probably is.
But if you're actively appropriating a different culture and benefiting from that, just be responsible and put it out there and give us a broader picture of what you're doing. And I think that solves half of the issue because probably a lot of these organisations are doing that, but we don't see it. And I think seeing it is half of the battle.
Absolutely. There is a level of transparency. I think you're absolutely right. I think, even as you were talking about the Beyonce piece, I was thinking, well, do I think that's appropriation? And the more you talk, and then when you drop that, she's never toured Africa piece. I think that's a pretty big deal. And I think, there's probably a genuine motive for what she's doing because at the moment she's on this whole black everything.
The motive is touring in Africa is not going to bring in the dough rather than touring in UK, all over America. Her tickets cost 150 quid a pop for a ticket. Africans, we don't have money to pay that.